Rolling now, but I can always add it.
We're ready?
Go.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Akron Tax family. Oh, let me start all over. Akron. Hit stop.
Go
Let's start
ahead.
again.
Man, I'm gonna cut it
Okay.
out.
Good evening, Akron Tax family. I hope you all are safe this Saturday evening. I know we weren't able to have training today, so we decided just to switch a couple of things up. Tomorrow we're going to plan to have training, in-house training. But part of my job during the training was to go over some of the compliance issues for this year. So instead of having to do that on top of the original training that was set for today and tomorrow, we decided to do it on video. So just bear with us as we go through the information. After the information, you will probably get an email with a couple of questions. That way we can just ensure that everyone is watching the video and has the information needed for this upcoming tax season. So again, all of you all know me. My name is Heather. I operate as the Chief Financial Officer, and I also operate as the Compliance Officer for Accurate Tax and Bookkeeping. This year we're going to be doing a couple of things a little different. So if you have any questions about anything that I say during the video, feel free to give me a call or to text me, or you can put it on GroupMe so everyone can see the question if it's something that you think that everyone would benefit from. So just a little bit, let's talk about compliance. Like I said, I am the Chief Compliance Officer, or the CCTO. My job is to make sure that all of the returns are accurate to the best of my ability, that everything is done according to our standards and our policy and procedures. Up under me this year, we will also have tax auditors. Those tax auditors will be responsible for looking through files. We'll be looking at W-2 forms. We'll be looking at self-employment statements. We'll be looking to see if there are receipts. We're going to be looking for Social Security cards, making sure that the identification cards are in the files, that the signatures are in there. So those people will actually work up under me to ensure that we have accurate and complete files. Along with the tax auditors, you'll have the front desk assistants. So we know last year we had a front desk assistant, and mainly they were answering the calls, processing when people came into the office. They will also be a line of defense for us as far as compliance is concerned. So we may have our front desk people actually looking at files as well, just going through them, going down the order of operations, checking off to make sure that all of the tax preparers have done everything that they need to do to ensure that the file is complete. So let's talk a little bit about compliance. What are some things you as the taxpayer should do to make sure that you're operating inside of compliance and policy and procedures? The number one thing that we need for you to do right now, if you're sitting at home, I know it's snowing outside, I'm sure some of you all are watching the game or something, take a minute and get your P10. I'm not quite sure how much it is this year. I think it's 50 some dollars. We need for you to get your P10. We will not, I say it again, there will be no returns sent in to the IRS under any other P10s or any other names. You have to get your P10. You can go on right now to irs.gov and go through the process to get your P10. Once you get your P10 and it's approved, you'll get a statement, or there'll be something from the IRS showing that you have paid for your P10. We need a copy of that in your file. If you don't have a printer at home, you can take a picture of it on your phone and send it to us. But we have to have that on file before any returns in your name will be sent to the IRS. So if you have time tonight, go ahead and get the P10 and get that out the way. That'll be one less thing you have to worry about. The second thing, of course, this year you'll have to do, is you have to do every year, is to sign your contract. Now we're going to go over the contract a little bit in detail, and we'll go over it a little bit more in class. But because there have been some changes this year with the PATH Act, and we'll talk about that more in class, you all, I'm sure you've heard about some of the refunds will be delayed until after February 15th. Because of that, we are changing up the contract just a little bit, because I'm sure you don't want to wait to the end of February to get paid on returns that you've done in January. So I know we'll be starting to process returns on the 23rd. So we are trying to figure out a way that we can actually pay you. What we're going to try to do is what's called a draw. So basically a draw is, I don't want to say a loan, but it's money that is given to you until the actual return comes in. And like I said, it'll be detailed on your contract, and we will go over that in class. Again, you'll have your username and password. Just want to reiterate to everyone that you do not give anyone your username and password. That is specifically for you. All preparers are required. I don't care who you are, how long you've been with the company. Everyone is required to go through training this year. If you have not gone through training, if you haven't completed the steps that we're asking you to do, then you will not be able to file taxes with us this year. So we're asking everyone to get on board. Your training is not going to be as long as some of the other classes because everyone that's working with the Charlotte office this year are pretty seasoned. So it should not take a lot of time to get you all reacclimated, into the software. So it shouldn't take that much time, but we do need you for you to be there for the training. So we just make sure that everyone's on the same page. Okay, every week we're going to have a financial analysis or an audit analysis. So what my hope is at the end of each week that you will get a detailed report from either myself or one of the tax officers, the tax auditors, or even one of the front desk assistants. And on that report, it's basically going to be either, a job well done, we didn't have any issues this week with our files, or hey, we've noticed that this week that a lot of people have been missing this signature, or a lot of people have not been notating this, or, there's this going on. Just a way to keep everyone abreast of the files, of things that we can improve on, things that we may need to change, things we may need to tweak, maybe something we see that we've done before that we need to change up now. So that's just going to be our communication to you and for you to keep you abreast of all the compliance issues that we have going on. Another thing that we're going to do this year for compliance, if there is an issue with a tax return, I know sometimes we have clients that are upset, they don't get back the amount that they think they're supposed to get back. We are going to have what I call compliance reports. So if you have any incident that happens with a client, maybe it's even before they get their refund back. Maybe there's something that happens in the office. Maybe they don't like the way you've done something. They express that to you. Or maybe you've noticed that they brought in a W-2 that doesn't look quite right. Whatever the case may be, we're going to have a form for you to fill out. And that needs to be given to us on a daily basis. So if there's anything going on and we have to talk to the client about something, we should be able to have a file where you've already notated the incident. So we want to make sure that you're doing that. And Cletus will probably talk a little more about that. It doesn't have to be long or drawn out, but we just want to make sure that we're on the same page with you, that we're able to talk intelligently about what the person is saying. So if you can notate if there's something that's gone on, that if there's any type of situation, that way we can kind of be abreast of that. Everyone will get a compliance book, so I'm not going to go over all these penalties, but we are seeing that more people are getting audited. So we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence, and we'll talk about due diligence in a minute, but doing our due diligence to make sure that we are being honest, that we are fulfilling our duty as a tax preparer to complete taxes in an accurate and a fair manner. So let's talk a little bit about code of conduct and best practices. The first thing I want to talk about, and I shared this with the Monroe office, is that we want to be more careful this year with the returns. I know on Drake, you can go to CSM and you can basically see everyone's tax return. What we do not want happening anymore is other people looking at different files. For an example, if I am doing Cletus's tax return, then I am the only one that has permission to look at Cletus's tax return. So what we have noticed in the past is that I have seen returns being done and there are 4 or 5 people that have actually been into that tax return. Well, that's not how it should be. So when a person comes in and they're getting their taxes completed, they are authorizing you to complete their tax return. They're not authorizing the whole office to do that. Of course, Cletus and myself have access to those because we are the owners, but that's it. So no one else is allowed to go into a file, not unless Cletus and I give you special permission. And as of this time, nobody has special permission. So we are asking that no one looks at anyone's tax return. If someone needs help with a return, then we're going to have you to notate that in your notes. You can put that in the notes, in the file, that, you know, I needed to ask someone for help with the return, and they had to log into it. So it has to be notated. That is something that we are going to be doing as compliance. We're going to be noticed. We're going to go through and make sure that the right people are looking at the files. So we want to make sure, I'll say it again, if it's not your client, if they have not come into you to get their taxes done, then you are not authorized to look at their tax return. And that just makes sense. I know that you all don't want anyone looking at your tax returns. You don't want anybody looking at your personal information because it's your personal information. So we want to make sure that we're safeguarding our clients. We want to make sure that we're not leaving any doors open for fraud, that we're not leaving any doors open for any type of complaints. So please just be mindful of that. Some of the things I don't have to get into, I'm going to let you read this in the book. It's just some things that I really want to make sure that we understand. We want to make sure about the office. I say this every year, that we operate in a professional and courteous manner with our clients. I know sometimes we have clients coming in being a little irate, and I know sometimes that can be difficult to handle, but we are the professionals, so we have to make sure that we are maintaining a professional demeanor at all times. That means our desk, that means our surroundings, that means our attire, the way we present ourselves. Everything should be presented in a professional manner. We'll have t-shirts again this year, or golf shirts, polo shirts. I'm not quite sure what the color will be. I know a lot of people don't want white, so we're going to look at some different colors, some different alternatives. So we want you to be dressed professional. Jogging pants are not allowed. Joggers are not allowed. You need to come in professional attire. Tights for ladies. I know everyone's into the yoga pants and things of that nature, but we want to be professional when we're in the office. If you have any question about anything, attire or anything like that, please text me or text Cletus, and we can kind of walk through that with you. But we want to make sure that we are presenting ourselves in the right manner, because what you do actually represents accurate tax and bookkeeping. So we just want to make sure that we're professional at all times. So that means that we're keeping our desk clean. We had this conversation, I believe, last year. You know, I know sometimes some of you all are working long days and you have to eat. Well, you have to be mindful of the fact that certain foods put off certain odors. And even if you're eating something that's not really odorous, you need to make sure that you discard of that in a timely fashion. You don't want to be eating when you have a client in front of you. You want to make sure you don't have that. You don't want to have a drink beside the keyboard or the CPU unit, because that could damage those. So we just want to make sure that you're being mindful of the office. I know that a couple of times I went down to the office and it was a mess with trash. Be courteous. We're not asking you to be the custodian, but we are asking that if you've eaten food and you have food in your trash can, there's nothing wrong with you putting it in the dumpster. You shouldn't leave it in the trash can. So let's just be courteous of our surroundings. We're not asking for anyone to, like I said, be the custodian, but we are asking you to be responsible. Okay, some of the things that I just want to go over real briefly that we are prohibited from doing. Do not make any fraudulent or misleading statements. Make sure that you're just being the fact finder, that you're not swaying the client one way or the other. You cannot make changes to a tax return without written consent from the client, not verbal consent. If there's anything that needs to be changed with the client, it needs to be in writing and the client needs to sign off on it. We want to make sure that we're being professional with our conversations with the client. I'm sorry, Cletus was saying something to me. So we just want to make sure that we're being courteous with the client. Let's go over, last but not least, let's talk about due diligence real quick. One of the big issues this year with IRS is going to be due diligence. Basically, what due diligence is saying is that we are doing our part of the bargain to make sure that we are handling the information that the taxpayer gives us in a correct and accurate way. So I know in the Monroe office, I mentioned Jocelyn. Jocelyn was really good at notating her files. And it's not just client came in, gave social. We want detailed notes. That's what the IRS is looking for. I also said this in the Monroe training. If it only takes you 5 minutes or 10 minutes to do a tax return, you are not doing the tax return correctly. I'll say it again. If you're doing a tax return and it takes you less than 10 minutes, you are not doing your tax return correctly, because when the client is sitting down in front of you, you should be going not just the order of operations, but you should be asking them questions. If you're concerned about that or you don't know what questions you should be asking, let us know. But if you're in the Drake software, you should be asking, were there any changes to your situation this year? Really getting a feel for the client. Not only that, but you're building rapport. So if you've only been spending 10 minutes with the client, you're going to have to change that this year. And we can see that in compliance. We can actually log in and see how much time is devoted to each return. So let's make sure that we're doing due diligence. Let's make sure that we're looking at the returns that we're putting in. Again, if you see red flags in a return, something I shared in the Monroe office, a person comes in and they want to claim 3 dependents, but they really don't know anything about the dependents, that's a red flag. Or someone that comes in and they give you a W-2 and it's handwritten, that can be a red flag. Now, there are instances where there are written W-2s, but it's very rare. If someone comes in and they're just wanting to do outlandish things, or you just feel uncomfortable, you need to talk to myself or talk to Cletus, because we do not want you to do a return that may be fraudulent, and that goes on you. So although we're the company, you're the tax preparer. So you want to make sure that you're guarding yourself and you're actually guarding the company. If something just doesn't feel right to you, trust your gut. It probably isn't. The last thing I want to talk about, well, I'll say the last thing. The last thing that we want to talk about is security for our clients. One of the things that I saw last year that I think most of us were guilty of was leaving out files. There were times I would come in and there would be client files in some of the bins. We cannot do that. All client files should be put up in the filing cabinets. You should never have any client, you shouldn't have a client's information on the desk when you're doing another client, because let's just say you have to go to the printer and get a copy of the person's return that you're doing. It's nothing but a second it takes for someone to look in the file, copy down a social and date of birth, and then they have all the information they need to do, still identity. And that's a big thing with the IRS. So we want to make sure that we are safeguarding the client's information. We're not leaving Social Security numbers laying around. I know some of us, we have our clients and they send us pictures of Social Security cards. Those need to be printed off, put in the file, and you need to make sure that you're discarding those out of your phone. If you still have some of those in your cell phone, you need to print them off and get rid of them immediately, because we want to make sure that we're safeguarding our clients and their information. We want to make sure that we're not talking about a client's file to any other person. It's confidential information. If someone, I don't care if they're a family member, we're not talking to family members about another family member's return. Every file that we have is confidential. We want to make sure that another thing that I noticed on our end is a lot of us sometimes when we have lull time, we're on Facebook or we're on the internet and things of that nature. This year we are not going to do that. If you want to get on Facebook and you have some downtime, you don't have a client, you need to use your phone. We do not want to use the company computers for anything except that is related to business. So I'm going to tell you, we're going to do, we want everybody to feel free and have a great work environment, but there's just some things that we have to safeguard with the computers, because malware and viruses, that can happen. Sometimes you click on things and you don't even think you're clicking on it, and it can create a big issue. So any personal things, your personal emails, things of that nature, you need to get those on your phone. And like I said, if we have those issues, Cletus or myself, probably myself, because I know Cletus is going to be very busy, I'll come to you. We'll have to fix it. Like I said, we're not trying to, be hard or anything like that, but we are trying to do things the right way. So there may be some things that we've done in the past that we're changing, because we always want to operate in excellence. Just a quick note. I just want to make sure this year that you all have your T's crossed and your I's dotted when it's coming to Schedule C income, and you're, looking at the W-2s, when you're looking at the 1098Ts, I'm sorry, for your college education credits, that you're just not sticking them on the return, that you want to make sure that you can verify that. Because if something happens and that client's audited, they're gonna say they don't know anything about it, even though they've told you that they've had college credit. So you want to make sure that you have documentation in the file. If there's Schedule C income, we want to make sure there's documentation in the file. We want to make sure that we have an address, a correct phone number, a correct email address for the clients. I know some clients may not have an email address, but I'm pretty sure 99% of our clients do have an email address. We want to make sure that we have all of that information in the file. I think that's about it. We'll probably go over a little bit more in training in class, but we've covered the gist of it. Like I said, if there are any complaints, that we will have something that you can sign in order to put in the file, and just so we kind of know what's going on. As far as the compliance side, there is going to be a tax preparation code of conduct that we're going to need for you to sign off on, just saying that you acknowledge this. One of the things we're going to do, we're going to utilize videos like this if we can't have face-to-face interaction. And so what we'll do is we may do a quick video, and then we'll send out maybe 5 or 6 questions just to make sure that you're looking at what you need to look at, and you can send it back to us. I think that's all I have for you all tonight. Tomorrow you'll get a copy of the Policy and Procedures Manual, as well as the Compliance Manual. And the Policy and Procedures Manual is similar to the Compliance Manual. It just goes into more detail about some of the things that we covered, such as protecting the client, our code of conduct, our dress code. I'm just trying to tell you some of the things that's in here. What happens if you don't do things a certain way? Is there any time that I won't get paid on a return? And the answer is yes. The only way you wouldn't get paid on a return is if you don't follow the policies and procedures of Accurate Tax and Bookkeeping. That means you haven't gotten signatures, you haven't gotten Social Security cards, you have incomplete returns, you haven't done your due diligence, you don't have identification cards for your clients, things of that nature, things that you already know that you should have. So those would be things that would cause you to forfeit your commission, and we don't want to do that. We want everybody to get paid. We want everybody to be happy. We want to move forward. We want to grow. We want to expand, but we have to make sure that we're doing things the right way. The Policy and Procedures talks about that, we don't condone harassment or violence. All of you all are independent contractors. However, if you tell a client that you're going to be there at 10 o'clock, we expect for you to be there at 9:50. So please don't tell a client they have a 10 o'clock appointment and they're waiting 15 to 20 minutes for you. Okay, we want to make sure that we're handling everything in excellence. We want to make sure that we're not being tardy. That's a breach of contract because we expect for you to be on time. If you smoke, we want to make sure if you're smoking, please don't smoke in front of the building. We want you to go to the side of the building just to be courteous of our clients. Okay, if you're in this is another thing too. I know sometimes that we have to, all of us have children, we have family and things of that nature, but we want to make sure that we're having a professional atmosphere. So if something happens and you have to bring your child to work, or you have a family member that has to come in, we're asking for you to get prior approval from us. We just want to make sure that we have enough room. The office is only so big, and we want to make sure that we're actually servicing our clients well. And, I've had days when I've had to bring my kids with me, and I know how much of a distraction it can be. Sometimes that's necessary, and we definitely want to be a family-friendly company, but we just ask you that you give us the heads up on that. I think that's it for the Policy and Procedures Manual. You all can read this on your own. The last part of this is going to talk about the wow factor. We're going to talk a lot about customer service this year. Smiling when we answer the phone. I talked about in the Monroe office, if you just smile when you answer the phone, how that changes your intonation of your voice, how it just comes more pleasant. So we want to do things like that to increase our customer service. We're going to talk a little bit about telephone etiquette. I'm just going through some of the things in here. Deciphering body language. If you see a client doing a certain thing, what that means, how you can combat that or compensate for that, where you can change their body language. We'll talk about that during the year. Resolving conflict. We all know, y'all already know that we have clients when we tell them they're going to get back $5,000 and they only get back $4,999, even though it may be $1. That they're upset about it. They want to know where that $1 is. Why did we take their money? And so you're going to have these conflicts that arise. How do you handle that conflict? Do you know how to present to them the correct information so that at least they have the correct information? I'm not saying they're not going to be upset, but at least we're giving them the information that they need in order to understand what's going on with their return. And then again, at the end of this, the policy and procedure manual, there will be a record of receipt for the employee handbook for you to sign, to put in your file along with your contract and your other paperwork. So we are excited about this year. We're hoping to do some different things this year. We're hoping to expand. We're hoping that you have a great tax season, that there are going to be some great changes that will hopefully open up the door for you all as it relates to other business ventures that we are looking into that can kind of help carry you after tax season is over. So get prepared, get ready. I know tax season, my husband always says tax season comes really quick and it goes really quick. So we want to make sure that we're making a great impact in the time that we have, that we're utilizing all of our abilities and all of our resources, and then that we're moving on to the next thing. Because if you do really good customer service during tax season, and I'll just tell you all, we're looking at insurance. I already have my insurance license. We've been talking about it for about a year now, but we're going to really go hard in on the insurance, property and casualty, life and health. And I'm telling you all, if you're good with your clients, you can just segue them right into another business, and it's a piece of cake. You already have your client list that you can work from and build from. So get ready. Look forward to meeting everyone tomorrow again and seeing everyone's face and getting ready to get the ball rolling. Have a great night.